while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. Chris will be back later in the week. We've got a good show up ahead for you, and we're starting with our first guest, Dr. Mark Fuller, Chancellor of UMass Dartmouth. Hey, Mr. Fuller. Sorry, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So before we get started, you just accepted the position of Chancellor fairly recently. I'd say about a year ago. So people who may not know who you are, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. So I've actually been in the Chancellor role a full 2 years. The first 6 months as interim,
right?
And then I was appointed into the permanent position about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, I was 12 years at UMass Amherst. I was 9 years dean of the Eisenberg School of Management at UMass Amherst, and then 3 years I was the vice chancellor for advancement, and I ran all of the alumni relations and fundraising activities at the campus. So 2 years on the job here.
So we're speaking with Dr. Mark Fuller. He is the chancellor at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. So one of the things that you've been talking about recently has been your student recruitment efforts. There were apparently, we had COVID. We had some. There had been some, some bumps in the road in terms of enrollment at UMass Dartmouth, right? And you had worked on expanding that. Can you tell us a bit about your efforts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? There's obviously demographics, even preceding COVID, that talked about sort of a declining high school graduation population. But UMass Dartmouth has basically been living through a 10-year decline in new student recruitment at the undergraduate level. So, I was brought in to really try to reverse that, rebuild the brand of the institution and do a much better job sort of recruiting at that level. And so this year in fall 22 that we just got out of, we had a 3-year high out of the last 10 years in terms of new student, what we traditionally think of as freshmen, but we think of them as sort of new first-time students. And then next year, fall 23, we actually anticipate being at a 5-year high. So really trying to reverse some of those trends. And we've done that through some great work, from our team, different strategies in outreach, better in-state recruiting, better out-of-state recruiting, new messaging on the university. We had a great story to tell here, but we weren't articulating it well in the market. And so we really leaned heavily into that, in addition to sort of new technology, CRMs, et cetera, to help customer relationship management systems to help us really reach our students in sort of new, innovative ways. So really starting to pay some dividends. Like I said, I think next year we'll probably be at a 5-year high at the undergraduate level. And we've also leaned heavily into graduate recruiting because, again, the population seeking education has changed, and we're getting literally 400 times the applications that we got last year to date in graduate, given our focused recruiting in that area. So whereas we might have had 250 last year, we have 1,000 applications for our graduate programs this year.
What types of? I'm a graduate of the law school, which is a branch of UMass Dartmouth. Yeah. So, I know at least one of the graduate programs that are offered at UMass. But what are some of the other graduate programs offered at UMass Dartmouth?
Well, I think what we're seeing, and we try to be we provide a good, obviously, baseline educational experience, but we also try to be, and we have to be, responsive to the market. And so the law school, which you're a graduate of, is one of the fastest growing law schools in the country. But the real growth that we're seeing right now are in many of the STEM disciplines. For example, computer science, cybersecurity, data science, business and analytics, also healthcare. All of those areas are really growing, especially at the graduate level. Folks are coming back from the workforce or sometimes going on straight through after their undergraduate to pursue degrees that really get them great jobs. Some of those analytics jobs start in the 80s and can, exceed under 100,000 on the exit salary. So it's really attracting a very different population into the university. And what we're trying to do is take advantage of that wave. We know that there's demand for it, and so we're adjusting our programs and recruitment processes to take advantage of it.
Does any of that have to do with sort of the expansion of life sciences and STEM careers in the greater Boston area?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we place nearly 85% of our students back into Massachusetts, and obviously a lot of those are headed either into, the greater Boston area or the South Coast. We still place a lot of students on the South Coast, and we take a lot of pride in that. But Boston is clearly a sector that has strong areas in finance, strong areas in technology, and the analytics, and strong healthcare. And so we're ideally positioned to help provide employees for that workforce.
So speaking of STEM, Governor Healy's very first out-of-office visit and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll's very first out-of-office visit on official business off of Beacon Hill was at UMass Dartmouth to talk about climate change and the university's role in that. What did that mean for UMass Dartmouth as an institution, and what ground was covered during that meeting?
So we were quite excited about that, obviously. Right. We were proud to be chosen as the first site visit, and I think it had a lot to do with our focus on coastal sustainability. We're obviously heavily embedded into the fishing industry, into renewable energy, wind energy. We have grants that are working in the area of biodegradability of plastics in the oceans, with all the pollution side effects that plastics can have in our society. So we view ourselves as the marine campus, and I think that was certainly a part of the motivation for the governor's office to come down and visit us. We're also a campus that is highly rated by the Princeton Review in sustainability. We take a great deal of pride in that. And so between our sort of teaching and research mission focused on sustainability, I think that, we're also a campus that takes a lot of pride in it. And I think that's what really led to us being a choice, at least in the option pool, for that first visit.
We're speaking with Dr. Mark Fuller. He's the Chancellor at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. So when you also have talked about, you're improving your student recruitment. There's also been some budget. There are also, prior to your, you taking the position as Chancellor, there'd also been some budget pitfalls during the previous administration. What have you done to sort of improve the budgetary strength of the university?
Well, it's interesting. So much of many people think that a public university is largely funded through taxpayer dollars, and there's a big contribution that comes to us. About 40% of our budget is funded through sort of a governmental allocation, if you will. At Amherst, it's about 25%, but that's because the other components of it are larger, where they draw their other revenue sources. So for us, about 40% from the state, and that other 60% comes from tuition, fees, auxiliaries like housing and dining, research, overhead, and philanthropic giving. And so even though the public universities are a great value, we certainly try to provide a superior quality product, we really have to pay attention to the financials. I mean, we operate, that 60% operates very much like a private business. We have to, make ends meet at a university. And so, and a lot of that is really focused, honestly, on new student recruitment, whether it's undergraduate or graduate, and the retention of those students. And so we really had to revamp how we were approaching and marketing ourselves, the programs we were offering, the technology that we were using to communicate with students. We really had to revamp our processes to not only tell our story better so we could attract those students, because we do think we have a great story and we're a great value, but also then retain those students when we're here. So a lot of shifts in the leadership team, a lot of shifts in innovating on our processes, paying a lot of attention to mental health, which is, a key factor for all educational institutions, our sense of belonging on campus, providing appropriate financial aid, and just really looking at the data and trying to identify those students that might be struggling, whether it's in their coursework, in their social interactions, or in their financial aid, to identify those students early and intervene in their experience so we can try to retain them, because there's nothing worse than having somebody come to any kind of educational institution and not finish, right? I mean, I'm a first-generation college student. My brothers and I were the first in our family to go to college, and so I really believe in the mission of a public institution, but you've got to finish. And so we're really leaning heavily into processes that support our students to allow them to persist through the 4 years.
So we're speaking with Dr. Mark Fuller. I think that's important, the Chancellor of UMass Dartmouth. I think that's an important thing to bring up. I mean, certainly as a law student, I'm sure you as a doctoral candidate previously can attest to the varying mental health strains that a student can endure. But it's what type of expansive mental health services can a student expect at UMass Dartmouth?
Well, we have on-site mental health. We have telehealth that students can avail themselves of, so they can actually do it via Zoom with counselors that can be anywhere in the nation. We also have a brand new Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Kimberly Scott, who's done a tremendous job in sort of building programming that will allow students to, embed themselves in the fabric and the life of the university. A lot of this is not just COVID. We actually had a very interesting speaker on the other, 2 weeks ago, that talked about slow versus fast maturation of students. And whereas in the era where I grew up, people got jobs earlier. They got their first car earlier. They took their first drink earlier. There are these markers. Today's students actually do those things at a much later time. And it's a very statistically significant finding. I mean, you can look at these charts where all of these students are delaying these activities that we would typically associate with being an adult, right? And they're delaying them further out at a later age. And what that means is, at least what the belief is right now, is that these students are just a little bit less resilient. Not all of them, but in some cases they haven't experienced the things that I experienced and probably the things that you experienced earlier in their life, and they're getting them later. And it's not just about COVID. It's about, a 10-year trajectory on this slower maturation process. As families are smaller and the children are, watched over more closely, whereas if you had a family of 8, I hate to say it, but in the old days, it was sort of survival of the fittest, right? You were outdoors playing, you were getting your jobs early and all the rest of the stuff. And that changed over the last, decade or two. And so we're having to adapt our support services to account for that. So more counseling, more activities, more embedding into the fabric of the university. So we pay a lot of attention to that.
So we're speaking with Dr. Mark Fuller. He's the Chancellor at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. So is there any sort of, besides, you talked a lot about STEM and the graduate programs that people are pursuing. What are some major undergraduate programs that students are pursuing? I happen to know, just from my time there, a great many people who graduated, who pursued careers in engineering at UMass Dartmouth.
Mm-hmm. So we have there's two things. Obviously, we're a comprehensive university. What does that mean? We have a lot of colleges embedded in us. As you know, we have the systems-only law school, but at the undergraduate level, we have not only the liberal arts, which many of the smaller private universities have, but then we also have professional schools, which really differentiates in many cases sort of larger universities, although I can talk about our size in a second. I think our smaller size is an advantage, but we do have engineering, and we have computer science, and we have business, and we have nursing, we have medical laboratory sciences, and so we have all of these professional schools which provide great job outcomes. We also have the UMass Systems only College of Visual and Performing Arts, which has the traditional performing arts and visual arts, but we also do game design in there. And so we're really trying to build a portfolio of programs that allows our students to get great jobs. I mean, Marcus, I'm sure you know, but 50% of our students are first-generation college students, and that's what I was. So 50%.
Same.
40% are Pell eligible, right? So the students that may not come from a lot of means in their family, and 37% are students of color. And so we're trying to provide, ways to really bootstrap their lives and move them into a different, trajectory and their family's trajectory. They may come from a family that has an average income of $50,000, and yet they can go out with a degree in med lab sciences or nursing or engineering, earning $80,000, $90,000, or $100,000+ a year. So it really does make it a wonderful sort of transformational experience for those families.
So speaking with Dr. Mark Fuller, he's the Chancellor at UMass Dartmouth. Are there any upcoming events people should be aware of with respect to the university?
Well, we have ongoing things. We actually just, strangely enough, just last Sunday or 2 days ago, we had a new admitted students day, and we were happy to see, literally we used to typically have about 400 of those students that came in last year. We had 540 this year, so demand is high. We certainly have ongoing in terms of the community. We're trying to do a better job in welcoming our community to all our events. We have theater on campus. We have sporting events on campus. So there's a lot of activity as it relates to that. I believe this Friday, within the next couple weeks, we're going to have some announcements related to our MUS program, Marine Science and Technology Program awards, and so we have a lot of activity as it relates to that that's going on. So there's always a good churn of events, and we're trying to do a better job of embedding ourselves into the community on the South Coast so that people avail themselves of all those things.
So before I let you go, and I appreciate you joining us this evening and talking about all that UMass Dartmouth has to offer, I think it isn't talked enough about, publicly in the media, et cetera, about what the university has to offer. Where can people go just to learn more about the university if they want to go there, if they want to send their kids there?
Well, certainly, if they want to send their kids there, just hit our website, and you'll see an admissions link right on there. And we have a stellar admissions team now, led by a person I hired about 6 months into the job, Jim Roach, who's our Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management. We do a terrific job. We're seeing demand for open houses and applications that are surging beyond, the levels we've had over the last 5 years. So we really want to become a destination of choice, not just for the South Coast or the state, but also from the entire Northeast. And I'll say one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is we're this great combination of a research university. So you learn from people that are solving issues related to COVID or coastal sustainability in the classroom. They're teaching undergraduates, but we're small enough where you'll get to meet them. So we're 9,000 or 7,000 students right now, 5,500 undergrads. Any of the other research universities that you're typically exposed to could be 15,000, 30,000. So we're a unique school in that we're small enough that we get to know you and we take the time to get to know you, but you're really exposed to world-class research. So I'd point you to our website, and we will find you if you reach out to us. Trust me, we will return the call.
Chancellor Mark Fuller, I appreciate you joining us this evening. Looking forward to talking with you more in the future.
Thank you so much, Marcus.
That was Chancellor Mark Fuller, the Chancellor of UMass Dartmouth, for which I am a proud graduate. And actually, my dad worked there for 39 years in HVAC. So, interesting conversation with Dr. Fuller. I look forward to talking with him more in the future. We've got a good rest of the show ahead of you as well. We have the Ward 3 candidates calling in. I believe Mr. Oliver is going to call in around 8:30, and Miss Amaral is going to call in closer to 9:45, or 9:30. So we're going to be talking with them. That race is tomorrow. That election is tomorrow, February 28th. I know it's going to be difficult for a lot of you to get to the polls tomorrow, but I am certain of it, because these are two good campaigners for what I've seen, that these candidates have shuttle services to the polls. I am certain of it. I am certain of that. So however you can get there, if you need a ride, I'll ask them both. But I'm sure they offer shuttle services to the polls for people who have a difficult time. When I was running a city council campaign in Ward 3, we were driving people to the polls on election day. So it might be difficult, but you got to get there. It's really important. With all the stuff that's been going on in the city council, we've been talking about how vacuous that meeting was on Thursday, all the hot button issues that are before the council. It's really important, I think, that you get down there and that you vote in the Ward 3 election. So 508-996-0500 is how you can join me this evening. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus, and Chris will be back later in the week. This is 1420 WBSM. 508-996-0500. For people who didn't know, and if it applies to you, we have there's some cancellations. I know Freetown, Lakeville Regional School District is canceled. New Bedford Public Schools are canceled. Haven't heard from a few others, but it looks like there's schools are lining up to cancel classes for the day. If I get more updates, those are the only two that I know of right now. I think there is there may be a list. Try to find it. Oh yeah, we got it. So you can look actually on WBSM.com. There's a rolling list of updates. So you can go to WBSM.com, click on, there's a school cancellations list, and we get it's from the, and it'll be an updated list of all the school districts locally that have canceled their classes for the day. I guess I could have asked Chancellor Fuller if they were canceling class, but you can figure that out if you go to WBSM.com, you look at school cancellations, and you click on the link, and it'll be there. So 508-996-0500 is how you can join me this evening. Wanted to direct you to WBSM.com. We have an article that was up from Friday night, our Friday night show. Our Friday night show was actually a lot of fun. We had First, we started with counselors Shane Burgo and Ryan Pereira, counselor at large Shane Burgo, and Ward 6 City Councilor Ryan Pereira, who both wanted to come in. They actually had reached out to me to come in because there was a pretty chaotic meeting on Thursday. Really chaotic meeting on Thursday. Where we had Ward 4 City Councilor Derek Baptiste call our reporter little guy. And, you had other counselors squawking about the local media, to include Council President Morad, who spent 25 minutes ranting about Mayor Mitchell and the media. Then you had a few other counselors complain about the media as well. But Counselors Burgo and Pereira, I think, wanted to inoculate themselves from all of that insanity and, frankly, in some cases, stupidity from the city council meeting and say, hey, listen, we're all individuals here, which I thought was a really astute move, and we really appreciated it. And, of course, I always welcome to have any of the counselors on, or any local elected official. We have a lot of them on. I always welcome to have any local elected officials welcome to join this program and discuss the issues or clarify things with us when they want to. But it was a 2-hour conversation, right? So you can go to the podcast anywhere podcasts are offered if you're interested in hearing like the whole thing, the more robust part of the conversation. But the first hour was really more of a conversation with Councilor Burgo and Pereira. The second hour, they took some calls. Former Mayor Scott Lang, who had already been scheduled to come in, joined in on the conversation, and I thought brought up some really. First of all, he read the funnies, which is a great segment that's been going on since Chris's show, but also brought up some interesting points about decorum between city officials. But one of the comments the comments I thought to be some of the more interesting comments, which is what's encapsulated in the article, which is only a little bit of the conversation, but some of the comments were their frustrations in working with the mayor, John Mitchell. Shane Burgo said Mitchell, he prefaced it by saying he's, has a good working relationship with Mayor Mitchell for the most part, that they have good conversations, that they talk regularly, and that they're very cordial and friendly. But he went on to say that, aside from that he believes Mitchell is my way or the highway. He thinks that there are certain situations in which he said Mitchell's misled people through the media on the council's position on stuff and where they've worked on stuff. And so those specific examples that he talked about are cited in the article. With Ryan Pereira, he talked about several examples where it seems like felt like he was being belittled or dismissed by the mayor. He said he accused the mayor of calling one of his ideas dumb. So it's, again, some interesting commentary, and I direct you to WBSM.com to check that out, or if you want to check out the podcast, because they do take some calls, they do take some app chat messages. We covered a lot of ground, didn't just talk about the mayor. We talked about some of the things that were in front of the council, some of the issues that they're each working on, like housing. And I appreciated them coming on. Again, they reached out. What I liked was, I'm always reaching out, right? I always book guests throughout the week. Chris and we're always reaching out to people booking guests. But it's always nice when a guest comes to you, right? And so it was after that chaotic meeting in which, again, a city councilor called a reporter in the chambers little guy, right? After that chaotic meeting and all of the venting, I guess, the vent session that a lot of these councilors had, they just wanted to vent. Pereira had reached out to me and said, hey, Shane and I would like to come on the show on Friday. And I said, great. Made our Friday show a lot of fun. Our Friday shows are fun. Friday nights seem to be a time when a lot of news happens on South Coast Tonight in particular. You know, we broke the Healy, we broke the news of Healy endorsing Hero in the sheriff's race. We, had some news on Friday with Councilor Burgo and Pereira and their thoughts on working with Mitchell and some other things, right? So we seem to, for one reason or another, be able to make some news happen on Friday nights. And so it's always a lot of fun. Friday nights are always fun. Makes it worth it. It's all worth it, but you know what I mean. Friday nights are the most fun. They're my favorite shows. So 508-996-0500 is how you can join me this evening. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
1420 WBSM, where freedom of speech lives. You never know who will call in to South Coast Tonight. But they want to hear from you most of all. Call 508-996-0500 or use the WBSM app to send an app chat text message or leave voicemail.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. So in the 8 o'clock hour, we have Ward 3 City Councilor candidate Sean Oliver. He's going to call in at 8:30. One of the things I'm obviously going to ask him about is that story that came out on WBSM. It's actually been reported by every local media outlet, and it was some Facebook comments that were some Facebook memes, some posts that were shared by Oliver that some have said are, quote, transphobic. And some that they say contradicts his central campaign message. We'll talk more about that in the 8 o'clock hour. I know he had a conversation with Tim. We're gonna also talk to him as well here on South Coast Tonight. Carmen Amaral is gonna call in later in the program too. I believe closer to 10, around 9:30, 9:45. We're gonna hear from Carmen Amaral again. That Ward 3 City Council election is tomorrow. That's tomorrow, and it is all day. Right, I believe it's 7 in the morning, maybe 6, until 8 o'clock at night. You can get there. Last turnout was like 680 something, I think, in the last Ward 3 election. There's like 10,000 eligible voters in the ward. Now, typically municipal elections are always lower than the general election. So, than the even midterm or presidential election years, of course, it's going to be lower. You're not expecting all 10,000 people to show up, although that would be nice. But at least, like I said, if you're in Ward 3 and you may have a difficult time getting to the polls tomorrow due to the weather, there have been a lot of school cancellations. You can check on WBSM.com to see the rolling list of school cancellations that will continue to be updated It'll be continue to be updated. You can see all the schools in the area that are canceling for tomorrow. If you're going to have difficulty getting to the polls, one of those campaigns will offer you a ride to the polls. Guess what? You don't have to tell them who you're voting for either. So you won't have to tell them who you're voting for. They'll offer you a shuttle to the polls, I'm sure. There'll be somebody that'll be able to get you to the polls tomorrow. There will be somebody that will be able to get you to the polls tomorrow. You just need to reach out to them and make sure, so you can make sure you get there before 8 o'clock, because this is going to be a close election. It's going to be a really close election. Every vote counts. You know, the difference between each candidate was about 27 votes, but there's, a few hundred up for grabs. So they're both basically starting from zero. It is going to be a very close election. Your vote is going to count. You not showing up could literally swing the election. We actually saw some state rep elections be decided by one vote. One was decided up in the North Shore, was decided by one vote. Another one was decided by 7 votes. 7 votes total, and there were like 60 write-ins actually. So these elections are close, and they matter, and your vote matters. So make sure you get there. Again, there'll be plenty of ways for people to facilitate your vote. 508-996-0500 is how you can join us this evening. Tell you what, we're going to take a break now. We'll be right back. This is South Coast Tonight.
Vote Team
Coast tonight. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can join me. Marcus, do you have a family member named Gilly that was in the alcohol sales industry? Yes, I do. Yep. That is, I do, actually. So that's correct. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. We have that was from Polly in New Bedford. Thanks for the message, Polly. That is correct. I do have a family member named Gilly. So I also appreciate Polly saying the other night that I'm growing on him. That was very nice of you. I appreciate it. It's a process. It's a process, but eventually they all do. They all come around. They all come around. You all come around. I appreciate it. I'm just kidding. I appreciate it. It was definitely rough. It was definitely a rocky start when I first came on with Chris, but over time, I think the audience and I have developed a good dialogue that I've been able to continue on my Saturday show, and I'm able to continue on South Coast Tonight. And I really do appreciate everybody giving me the opportunity, because if it wasn't for you guys tuning in, I wouldn't be able to be here every night. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you. 508-996-0500. Also taking your messages on the WBSM app chat. And yeah, we're going to have Sean Oliver in the second hour. We're going to have Sean Oliver in, and we're going to have Carmen Amaral in the third hour. So stay tuned for that and give us a call. This is South Coast Tonight. And yeah, of course, we're going to talk about that story. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on Friday because we had all that other stuff going on with the council, but we definitely, with the councilors being in, Mayor Lang being in, I think we covered a lot of ground. You can check out that podcast when you get the chance to. I think you'll really enjoy it. But we'll talk more about that in the 8 o'clock hour.